The Seattle Seahawks didn't just add rookies, they may have quietly stolen the exact pieces that keep a Super Bowl champion terrifying. Because if Jadarian Price becomes the explosive weapon this offense needs, and Bud Clark turns those 15 interceptions into instant NFL chaos, Seattle's draft class could look way more dangerous than anyone wants to admit.
You have the Seattle Seahawks, and continuing the theme there, you gave them a C as well.
Yeah, I mean, we talked about it a little bit. You know, we came into this draft process with these grades, and the NFC West, 3 out of their 4 were drafts that we didn't like. And then the one team who we felt like needed it the most, the Arizona Cardinals, has the best draft. But looking at this draft class, I'm giving them a C. And the reason why I'm giving them a C is because you have 8 picks that right now is probably only going to produce 1 starter. And that was your 32nd pick in Jadarian Price. But again, that's really no fault of theirs. They are the reigning Super Bowl champs. So when you're the Super Bowl champs, you're going to pick at the bottom of dang near every round. So 4 out of the 8 picks came at the 32nd pick or lower throughout those particular rounds. And so it's only a certain level of player that's going to be there. The one other point, and I talked about it before in terms of Julian Neal, that was going to be a really good depth pick for them, especially on the outside as they look to get taller and longer. But they drafted 3 corners, including Julian Neal. Those back-end guys, especially the ones that they took in day 3, are going to have a chance to make this football team because the depth behind those guys is minimal, especially when you add in the nickel position, because Nick Emanwari is going to be the nickel, right? But then you look on the other side, and Devon Witherspoon can also play nickel and has been the nickel. But behind them, the depth is very minimal. So those back-end guys will have a chance. This grade for me right now is a C. That 3 years from now, we could look back and upgrade it a little bit more based off of how they fit in with the rest of this roster.
All right, before we go to break here, let's go around the horn and just say, I'm gonna say the LA Rams to mix it up. Who's going to win the division next year? I'm going to say LA Rams.
I'm going to go with the Rams.
I'll go Rams also.
It's hard to pick against Seattle.
And they're plus 130, according to producer Lucas.
It's hard to pick against
And we just crushed them for their draft.
It is, but and I know Pete's gonna call me a homer, but I'm gonna go Niners. I'm gonna go a healthy Niners team.
And by the way, I will say this: it wouldn't shock me to see any one of those 3 teams win it.
Seahawks second, and then the San Francisco 49ers are third.
But they could easily be flipped.
100%. But it is interesting that we spent the last 45 minutes crushing the Rams.
Tells you how good those teams are, though. Is the fact that they don't have great drafts and they don't need these players, and they're still going to be Super Bowl contenders.
And your big contention was you didn't need a quarterback, take a wide receiver or whatever.
They need the running back in Seattle. There's no question.
That's right. Yeah, no, with the Rams. That's right. All right.
In the first round. Rob, before we kind of get into each player, just your thoughts of this class overall. Started with 4 picks, came out of it with 8. Just what do you think of the group they added?
I think that it's pretty remarkable, actually, that the Seahawks were able to turn those 4 selections into 8, considering, of course, that they kept their first pick overall, and that's usually the one that if you trade down that you're able to accumulate extra picks. So to be able to fill positions of concern and yet still have the quantity of selections that Seattle ended up with is yeoman's work.
Let's just start off. Excuse me. Let's start off at the top. Price is a guy that you had mocked to the Seahawks, and including in our Seahawks.com mock. What do you like him and about the fit?
I just see a player who is such a beautiful fit in the wide zone blocking system that the Seahawks offer. Now with the offensive coordinator Brian Fleury coming in for Clint Kubiak, it's a very similar system, and it's one that prioritizes getting the ball in the hands of the running back. And Price is his instincts, his burst, his power through contact. All of those things to me suggest that he is going to be a high-level starting running back in the NFL. And then, frankly, I thought that the running back depth fell off a little bit after the two Notre Dame running backs, and so it felt like if Seattle didn't pounce on the opportunity to take Price at number 32 overall, then they might be looking for a running back a lot later and much more of a position of concern.
I know there are fans who wanted the Seahawks to trade back. Heck, John Schneider said he wanted to trade back, but I think it was 5 trades right before the Seahawks complicated that. Is there something to be said for just like, look, we like this guy. He fits the need. Let's not overcomplicate it and just take what we want, what we need here at 31 or 32?
I thought so. I just think that it is, I kind of took the approach of the, KISS system, basically. Keep it simple, stupid. At least that's the way I looked at who I thought the Seattle might take. It is rather than complicate things. Again, with the running back depth falling off, I thought that if Seattle was able to trade down 2 or 3 or 4 picks, sure, that makes sense. But if you trade down too far, this player is too good, and I think they would just overly complicate things. So as you said, John, when there were, I think, 5 trades that happened right before him, and the opportunities for Seattle basically evaporated, then I think that it was a wise move to take the best player available who happened to fill an area of concern for your club.
Anyone stand out on this list as like your biggest surprise that they were still there? Like, I was like, wow, I thought that guy was going to go sooner.
I guess Bud Clark in a lot of ways, just because of the fact that when you have the ball skills that this young man possesses in an NFL that prioritizes the ball, obviously, but turnovers and big play opportunities, I was surprised that somebody didn't take advantage of his big play potential a little bit earlier. Again, this is a positional group for the Seahawks that, with the free agent loss of Kobe Bryant, I thought that it'd be fairly easy for other teams to recognize where some of Seattle's areas of concern might be, and to allow the Seahawks to get a player that has 15 career interceptions. To me was kind of like giving the Super Bowl champs a little bit more opportunity than they should have.
A ton of energy for both of them. Neil called himself the most physical corner in the draft. Is that a fair self-assessment?
I think it is. Julian Neal's an interesting guy. I mean, just 6'2", he's 200 pounds, and for a player that wasn't on the field as much early in his college career at Fresno State, to gamble on himself and transfer to Arkansas with a stop at Stanford, which speaks to his intelligence. But goes to Arkansas and against the elite competition of the SEC, and then plays that physicality you just mentioned, John. I mean, there was times where I watched him on tape where he would just throw aside would-be blockers, almost like you're being disrespectful throwing the ball or running the ball in my general area. And I just love that type of mentality for any defensive player, but certainly for a cornerback that you're selecting in the late 3rd round.
Seahawks then made a move up on day 3 to get Bo Stevens. John Schneider said just the gap was too big. They tapped into their considerable draft capital for next year to go do that. Just kind of tell us a little bit about what you like about Stevens and what he can do.
Just the pro readiness, the fact that he was a starter at both the left and right guard positions for an offensive line that was named the Joe Moore Award winner as the best offensive line in all of college football. Bo Stevens, at least according to Pro Football Focus's rankings, did not allow a single sack for 3 consecutive years.
That seems good.
Yeah, exactly. So, it just is, it's pretty remarkable that he was available at that point. He didn't have the greatest of testing numbers at the combine, but kind of like Jadarian Price in that if you watch the tape, I mean, he just plays fast and physical. And so I think that the fact that he was a durable player, again, the versatility and just the track record that Iowa has of producing quality offensive linemen, Seattle took advantage of that a year ago with Mason Richmond, for example. I do think that this is, again, another really strong selection for the Seahawks.
John Schneider doesn't trade up often, but when he does, I mean, the list includes Cam Chancellor, Tyler Lockett, Jaron Reed, Mike Dixon, DK Metcalf, Nicky Manwari. Does it kind of get your attention? Like, oh, they really like this guy if they're going to move up.
Exactly, especially in trading, picks from the 2027 draft to move back into this rather than just selections this year. That caught my attention that Seattle did that in the first place. And as you just mentioned, with that track record, it speaks for itself.
I mean, I think Mike's phrase was, can never have too many corners. What do you see in Dansby that would make a team want to take a 3rd corner in one draft with him?
I think the competitiveness, for one. He is a player that I was not familiar with early on in this process. As you mentioned, he was not invited to the combine. And then at this pro day, was not able to work out there either, had a core abdomen injury, and so wasn't able to work out there. He claims that he ran the 4.2s, and you see elite speed on the field. And I can just kind of mention a specific game. In the Holiday Bowl this past season, Arizona was down by 20. And this young man was able to get there was a breakaway play in which he showed remarkable effort to track a player down and tackle him at the 1 yard line. And so that the recovery speed that he showed, the willingness to tackle at that point, he had an interception in that game. He had a couple of different pass breakups in that game. The Arizona Wildcats had 4 defensive backs selected this year. I don't know. I've been doing this for 26 years, guys. I'm not sure I've ever seen one team have 4 defensive backs selected. The fact that he showed that type of competitiveness in a game that was kind of running away from them, I think, again, it just speaks to not only his athletic ability, but just his competitiveness. And so I think that he is the perfect type of player to throw a 7th-round selection on just to see if he can make it, because, frankly, the Seahawks needed numbers at the cornerback position, and he has all the traits worthy of gambling on.
Taking Price out of the question because that's the obvious one. Other than Price, who do you see out of this group maybe having the biggest instant role? Is it Bud Clark coming in and competing at safety right away, or who do you like to step up right away as a rookie?
I do think it is Bud Clark, and I mean this with all due respect to Ty Okada. I just think that, because Ty Okada, I think, is a terrific football player.
He had a great season.
Oh my goodness, it was unbelievable the season that he enjoyed this past year. I don't know that there is another defensive back in this draft class, even including the first round. Mansour Delane was the first defensive back that was selected this year. I don't know that there's any defensive back in this class that has Bud Clark's instincts, his hand-eye coordination. If he wasn't intercepting the pass, then he was breaking it up. And so I think that if you plug in his big play ability, given the talent the Seahawks already have on the defense, then that is just going to create that many more turnover possibilities for the Seahawks. And I think that is going to just be such an intoxicating blend for Seattle.
Yeah, 15 interceptions, and as John Schneider said, he could have had 30. I mean, that's how often he's getting around the ball. I guess lastly, when you look at kind of, certain drafts, a theme emerges, whether it's a position group, a side of the ball, a trait. Do you see any sort of theme that ties this class together, or just sort of getting the guys they wanted?
No, I think that a real theme is just the investment, again, in the human being. I mean, there were so many of the players here that the Seattle brought in on visits that were multi-year captains, that had high academic standards. I mentioned Julian Neal for a moment. The fact that he was at Stanford for a moment there, whether it be Bud Clark or Jadarian Price or Bo Stevens. I mean, they just were. Or we talked about the Iron Man, Devin Eastern, the defensive lineman. Let's talk about a later round guy. Again, just the durability, the consistency. That, to me, it felt like this was a draft class where Seattle focused in on players that they were enamored with who they were as people, not so much just as football players. Obviously, there was, 300 players or so that were selected this year, but it feels like these are young men that can help maintain just what Seattle prioritizes as far as it's all about the team. It's not just about you, but winning championships and being good quality people on and off the field.
Yo, mic check 1 to 2, -1, -2. Game over for this video, folks. Smash that like button, drop a comment, and subscribe to stay in the huddle for more. This is NFL Madness, bringing the heat and signing out.